We would invite all who move to stand and join us in the recitation of the Lord's Prayer, followed by a moment of silence. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. It is now 7 o'clock. Shelby City Council meeting called to order. Please remain standing for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Be seated, please. For the record, Mr. Crum and Mr. Geis are unable to attend because of illnesses. So tonight, stepping up is Miss Amber Cutler in place of Mr. Crum. So, Ms. Cutler, could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Rock.
Here.
Mr. Roberts.
Here.
Mr. Gates. Here. Mr. Martin.
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin. Here. Okay.
Good. I will now ask for a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal from December 20th, 2021.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Robb and a second by Mr. Roberts to dispense with the reading of the journal from December 20th, 2021. Discussion. Roll call, please, Ms. Cutler.
Mr. McLaughlin. Mr. Rock.
Yay.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
That motion to dispense passes. Thank you. Now we have the time for public comment. If anyone has public comment to make before council this evening, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and you may address council. If anyone received any correspondence for public comment? Hearing or seeing none, we'll move forward then to reports from standing and special committees. The Community Economic Development Committee met this afternoon. Councilman McLaughlin.
Yes, sir. So I just have one item. Kathy Webb with Marvin Memorial Library, she was there in attendance today at the meeting, and she gave us this flyer, as I gave it to each council member, and discussed the new database that they have on their website. It's called A to Z databases. It gives folks access to a lot of different things. And so to get on there, it's real simple. You just go to marvinlibrary.org, and then go under resources, and then under digital resources, and then there you'll see it, A to Z databases. That's all I have today, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. McLaughlin in regard to his report? Hearing none, move forward then to Public Works and General Operations Committee. Councilman, no, this is canceled altogether, right?
We had no meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rob. There was no meeting. Reports from city officials. We'll start with the mayor. Being that it was Christmas and New Year's time frame, typical duties day to day, but nothing to report outside of that. I do have a proclamation to make here under my report, but before I do that, I'd like to cover the two items on here, the liquor permit, a liquor hearing, and also the motion to confirm. So someone wants to make a motion for the liquor permit?
I'll move that council request a liquor hearing for Dan Up Limited at 191 Mansfield Avenue.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin to request a liquor permit for Dan Up Ltd. at 191 39. Discussion. Mr. Rob.
Do we know who the principals are for Dan Up Limited?
Mr. Gates.
Yes, I do, Mayor. I went to the Secretary of State's website, looked up DANOP Limited. The CEO is Daniel Coles, C-O-L-E-S, and the Vice President is Edwin Coles.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Gates?
Mayor, they're requesting, as we can see here, a C1, a C2, and a D6 license. A C1 license is for beer only in original sealed containers for carry-out only. C2 is wine and mixed beverages in sealed container for carry-out. A D6 license is for the sale of intoxicating liquor on Sunday between 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. at midnight. A Sunday sales license does require approval by the voters in that precinct. That will come later, but evidently they are requesting this license in anticipation of holding a local option election.
Thank you. Are there any other? Yes.
Just one other thing, a few years ago, the C licenses were full, the quota was full. It appears that a couple liquor holders did not renew their permits. One was AJ's Drive-Thru out on South Campbell. I'm not sure what the other one was, but I was surprised when I saw this because I had known that the quota was full. It's not full, that therefore they can apply.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to request a liquor hearing? Roll call, please, Ms. Cutler.
Mr. McLaughlin.
No. Nay.
Mr. Rock.
Nay.
Mr. Roberts.
Nay.
Mr. Gates.
Nay.
Mr. Martin.
Nay.
Motion to request a liquor hearing fails. Will entertain a motion to confirm?
Confirm the appointment of Ralph Rosinski to the Board of Park Commissioners.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Robinson, a second by Mr. Martin, to confirm the appointment of Ralph Rosinski to the Board of Park Commissioners. Discussion? He is a veteran, so we appreciate his service. Roll call, please.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rock.
Yay.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Motion to confirm passes. Thank you. I'm going to be reading a proclamation. It's in connection with Spread the Light campaign 2022. There will be a press release coming out. This is an event that's put on by We Act out of Mansfield. It'll be Sunday, January the 9th, this coming Sunday evening at 5 p.m. at Rocket Chevrolet here in Shelby. This is the first time this event has been held outside of Mansfield, so we're very privileged to be the host this year. I'll read from the press release. Spread the Light 2022 is a blue and red light week to promote pride in our local safety forces, partnership in all of our communities of Richland County, and peace in our neighborhoods. And with that in mind, I would like to read a proclamation from the city of Shelby. There will be a proclamation made Sunday evening from Richland County and signed by public officials that are there, elected officials. And I certainly invite our council members to attend Sunday evening at 5. And Chief Combs will be one of the speakers coming up this evening, on Sunday evening rather. Representative John will be there, Senator Romanchuk will be there, and Ms. Ohio will be there as well. It should be a good evening in the city of Shelby, and we'll be passing out the blue bulbs and red bulbs that are placed in outdoor lighting. This is a proclamation for First Responders Recognition and Support Week. Whereas from the beginning of this great nation, law enforcement officers and firefighters have played a very important role in saving lives, protecting property, and preserving the well-being, rights, and freedoms of our citizens. And whereas it should be recognized that these courageous men and women face the threat of dangers every day on our behalf. And whereas it is vitally important that our people know and understand the difficulties, duties and responsibilities of law enforcement officers and firefighters and the necessity for cooperating with them in their lines of duty. Now therefore I, Stephen L. Shagg, Mayor of the City of Shelby, Ohio, do hereby proclaim the week of January 9th, 2022 to January 15th, 2022 as First Responders Recognition and Support Week in honor of those who conscientiously and proudly perform their duties week in and week out. And furthermore, I encourage all Shelby citizens to show their respect, support, and appreciation in various ways for these dedicated men and women, including participating in the Spread the Light 2022 project, proudly and publicly displaying blue and red lights in support of first responders, sending a card of support to our local, county, and state law enforcement agencies and firefighters and stations, and sharing a story on social media about a positive experience, or personally thanking law enforcement officers or firefighters for their services. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Shelby, Ohio, to be affixed the 3rd day of January in the year of our Lord, 2022. So we're looking forward to a very great event here in Shelby to kick off First Responders Recognition and Support Week. Are there any questions or comments for me in regard to my report? All right, hearing none, we'll move forward. Next on the agenda would be Mr. Crum, Director of Finance, but maybe Ms. Cutler, I don't know if you have maybe just any comments from the office to make this evening.
We'll have more of an update second meeting of January. Right now, we're just finishing up, obviously, 2021, getting that all wrapped up and everything reconciled, so we can have reports ready. And of course, we're already planning budgetary items for 2022. So not much, except for the typical year-end, first of year activities, and we'll have more of the final numbers coming second meeting in January.
Thank you, Ms. Cutler. I will say Ms. Cutler is a very diligent worker and does a wonderful, wonderful job as a Deputy Director of Public Finance, so thank you for your labors. Are there any questions or comments in regard to her brief report on behalf of Mr. Crum? All right, hearing none, we'll move forward to Mr. Eister, Law Director.
No report this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And of course, Mr. Geis is not here. I will say on his behalf, I think you've seen the crews work on Main Street, replacing those lead service lines, doing our best to keep Main Street open to local businesses. Some of the signage, that's new signage you probably saw there, that was purchased specifically for this project. And so please give them elbow room and understanding, trying to, again, keep that project going, get it complete as quickly as possible, yet allowing traffic to come on Main Street to do business with our Main Street businesses. All right. Mr. Martin.
Along those lines, is there a way, so the detour, we know how the detour goes past there. Is there a way for additional signage to point to where parking is for Main Street? So if someone's coming through town, not familiar necessarily with the area, that, you know, it's one thing to say our businesses are still open for business. It's another one to point people actually where to park to go patronize those businesses.
Good point. We'll look into that. See, Mr. Geis or perhaps Ms. Griffin, we can come up with something here in the very near future. Point well taken. Very good. Any other comments? Move forward to new business, and just included in your packets, or actually on the table this evening, we do have a communication from the Shelby Municipal Court that they will be bringing on an employee full-time for scanning purposes this year. So that was a courtesy letter from the court, so you have that in hand. All right. Any other new business? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I think I know the answer for this, but I'll give you an opportunity to answer. New terms begin this evening for another 2 years. My assumption is you're keeping the council committees the status quo.
Yes, sir. Very pleased with the way they're working.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking. You're welcome. Any other new business? And by the way, congratulations to all of you sitting at the table. The swearing in ceremony is kind of the way schedules might kind of split up a little bit this year, but it still is effective. You're here, and I'm happy for you. Any other new business? If not, moving forward to unfinished business. There was nothing new to report on the future use of the Main Street Fire Station. We move then to award boundaries for the 2020 census, and I believe we have the first step in that process with legislation this evening, so I don't think we need to speak about it during old or unfinished business unless you desire. All right. Well, Ms. Covett, we'll move forward. No, Mr. Gates. Yes.
Another piece of unfinished business. The last council meeting, council elected 2 members to the volunteer firefighters and volunteer police officers dependent fund boards. Those 2 boards are meeting a week from this evening. One is meeting at 4 o'clock, the other one is at 4:30. If you will have Mrs. Gunter check with the chiefs and get those posted, please.
Sure will. Thank you. All right, any other unfinished business? All right, now, Ms. Covett, we'll move forward to ordinance number 34, 2021.
Yes, ordinance number 34-2021, enacting section 1040-12, connections required into chapter 1040, water, of the codified ordinances of the city of Shelby, Ohio. Third reading. Moved. Sorry.
Move the third reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Robinson, a second by Mr. Martin for the third reading of ordinance number 34, 2021. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Ordinance number 34, 2021 passes this third reading.
Move the ordinance be taken up and passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin, a second by Mr. McLaughlin for the passage of ordinance number 34, 2021. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Ordinance number 34, 2021 passes. We're ready for that.
Okay. Ordinance number 42-2021, amending substitute ordinance number 1-2020, establishing a wage for department heads and other non-certified employees.
Move the third reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin, a second by Mr. McLaughlin for the third reading of ordinance number 42, 2021. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Ordinance number 42, 2021 passes its third reading.
Move for final passage.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Roberts for the passage of ordinance number 42, 2021. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
One per customer.
Well, 6 votes, so it must pass. So ordinance number 42, 2021 passes. That was good.
Okay. Ordinance number 1-2022, amending chapter 1050, electricity, section 1050-02, rates and charges of service, D, balance utilization rate rider of the codified ordinances of the city of Shelby, Ohio.
Move for first reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. McLaughlin for the first reading of ordinance number 1, 2022. Discussion. Mr. Martin?
Thanks. I'm going to take this one, Mr. President. Anyways, I had asked, because we are getting to the point to where the balance levelization has done its job effectively, that would readdress it with this legislation. And so that's the purpose of this legislation, is to readjust the balance levelization rider.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Gates?
Just a question. I see the amount of the rider is $0.00. My question is, will that line item still appear on electric bills but have a zero amount to it?
We'll have Mr. Anderson come and put it, and he's got the answers, I'm sure.
Thank you, Mayor. The answer to that is no. I believe I wrote something in there that kind of refers to that it will be removed from the bill. Let me see.
Oh, there it is, yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yeah.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Ordinance number 1, 2022 passes its first reading.
Ordinance number 2-2022, amending section 206-02, boundaries of wards, and chapter 206, wards and boundaries of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Shelby.
Move for first reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Roberts for the first reading of ordinance number 2, 2022. Discussion. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, Council met as committee of the whole 2.5 weeks ago, and this legislation would put into effect that we agreed to at that meeting.
Any further discussion? Mr. Martin.
I do not agree with the new boundaries, and actually I don't think that we need new boundaries at all, because the existing numbers were within the allowable percentages, so I'll be voting no.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yeah.
Mr. Martin.
Nay.
Ordinance number 2, 2022 passes its first reading.
Resolution number 1-2022, authorizing the mayor and the city of Shelby to sign a memorandum of understanding with the IAFF Local 2492 regarding the hiring, training, and retention of new employees in the bargaining unit who, at the time of their hiring, do not possess professional firefighter certification and/or emergency medical technician, paramedic certification.
Move the ordinance, move the resolution be taken up and passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Roberts for the passage of resolution number 1, 2022. Discussion? Mr. Rob.
I have a problem with this. This came up, a little bit of information from a couple of meetings ago. I really don't like the idea of dropping the requirement for having the paramedic certification to hire a new firefighter. I don't think it's going to work very good for us. I really think that requirement should be kept. What I see is the city of Shelby training personnel for other departments. So we've seen that happen before. Somebody comes here, the requirement is they get the training, they get the certification, and then they look for a better paying job somewhere else. So I really don't think this is a good idea at this point.
Thank you. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, the request for this legislation came to me from the president of the local. I read it and checked to see where that had come from, who had seen it. My understanding is that this memorandum has been vetted by the union, by the chief, by the Civil Service Commission, by our labor attorney, and I would assume also by the safety director, since it's come that far. So, with that sort of support, I'm confident in this. I understand the concern that Mr. Rob has, but the situation is such that, as I understand it, and the chief can speak to it much better than I can, to get a large enough pool for candidates, this is the road we need to go down.
Thank you. Mr. McLaughlin?
Can we have the chief push podium and say anything on it?
Sure can. Chief Thompson? Care to comment, please?
Sure. The lateral transfer was good to us for years. The problem is you can't find paramedics now. Bucyrus, Guyan have been on a big hiring spree, taking over EMS in the Crawford County area. Mansfield is constantly hiring. At the time when we started this, we had 0 applicants. So in my book, we need to change something. So we changed to drop it down. Yes, there's a cost to it, but also, if you read the memorandum of understanding at the end, paramedic, which we'd be paying for, they have to pay it back within, it's prorated. If they stay 1 year, they're paying 100%. Then it goes to 75 for 2 years, and on down for 4 years. So it guarantees us we'd be recouping something for 4 years. We wanted a bigger pool to find a quality employee, more to look at. Hopefully the one stays and is a long-term employee for us. You know, eventually we'll be taking over transport. So this is an employee that, you know, we're going to be recouping some of our money off of billing. And, you know, give an investment. You have a guy here for 25 years, the investment on sending him to medical school compared to what we paid him is kind of minor. So to keep in the game, we've got to change what we're doing. And we're following along with many of the other departments and dropping it. We're not dropping standard. They have to get within 4 years paramedic 240. Most places are going 3 years. We elected to go with 4 in group discussion just because of what's going on now with COVID and pandemics and stuff like that. Give them the benefit of the doubt. So I think it's the right move. I really do. I understand what you're saying, Councilman Rob, but we've got to do something different to get employees. Yes.
Do you have an estimated average cost of what it would cost us? What's the total amount of money that we would be recouping under this schedule?
Okay. From the schedule, the cost of paramedic class, I just talked to North Central Ohio EMS today. They said ballpark 7,200, so I figured $7,000 to $8,000. That the student, that's books, class, that kind of stuff. Also, since there is a termination clause in there, with the advice from Matt Baker, that they would have to be compensated. So we'd kick around the idea of, okay, we'll pay for the class, but you go on your own time. Well, the problem is, what's the carrot at the end? They could go to class, not get certified, no repercussions. So trying to protect the city's investment on, hey, we're going to pay for the class, but there's a carrot for you also. So it goes both ways. And this will be on the sign in that memorandum. The new employee, if they do not have all the certifications, would be signing that with us, that, hey, you realize we are being very upfront with you what your responsibilities are. We pay for the class one time. They have 4 years to get it. If they would fail, you got 4 years, but it's on you. So again, protecting our investment. So we're not sending someone 3 times through class. So there's a group effort between myself, the union president, the mayor, Amber, Matt Baker, and civil service, bouncing ideas off each other, and I think it's going to work out well for us. I hope. And this does not do away with lateral transfer. We can still go that route. So it's just another option. It gives us a bigger pool.
Mr. Rob?
What's your plan to retain these people after they complete their schooling and they get offered jobs somewhere else?
Well, the plan is if they leave within 1 year, they pay back 100% of the paramedic class. If they leave after 2 years, they pay back the city 75% of the class and on down. So they have a monetary stake in it for up to 4 years.
Well, what do we do in year 5 or 6 or 7?
Then in 5, 6, or 7, we've got 4 years of service out of them at least. I don't think we would have very many employees if we said you owe us 10 years or 15 years or a retired career without exploring other options. I'd like to think in our area that we, with negotiations, keep a competitive and fair wage. And traditionally, we've kept employees for long term. So I look at this as another tool. And we've got to do something. Like I said, we had 0 applicants. We had to do something different. We have to. It's a must.
Mr. Martin?
So, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but what I hear you saying is that we have a good history of retention.
Yes.
It's just a matter of recruitment.
Recruitment. We're fighting, Mansfield, Bucyrus, Gallion. Everybody's there. We are all struggling to find medics. You can't find them. So what's the other option? You have to train. But not just, hey, we're just going to send you there for free. If you leave, you leave. There is a penalty at the end. And it depends on, they come in. What we did is we set the standards, EMT basic and volunteer firefighter. We can put them on the truck. So when they're not in class, we can put them into our service. Some of them, depending on what their qualifications are, they might just need paramedic. They might just need professional firefighter. They might need both. That's where we sit down as a committee and evaluate what's the best fit for Shelby Fire with this candidate. So it's an option.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yeah.
Mr. Rob.
Nay.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Resolution number 1, 2022 passes. Now comes to miscellaneous business. Is there any miscellaneous business that be brought before council this evening? Mr. Martin.
I apologize for late notice, but I have a family event that will be taking place in that Tuesday. That will be our next city council meeting, because Martin Luther King Day is that Monday, so I would ask to be excused for that.
Okay. Any other miscellaneous? Councilman Gates.
Just a note that on January 1st, the city charter went into full effect in 1922. So indeed, that's probably the best centennial of the charter, is when the whole document went into effect. Secondly, I wish to thank my colleagues for excusing me at the last meeting.
On the other side of the coin, we're very happy that you're here tonight and doing well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the interesting note about the charter. Good stuff. Any further miscellaneous? Councilman Gates?
Mayor, I move council adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin for adjournment. Roll call, please.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rob. Sorry, I didn't hear. Mr. Rob. Yay.
You were yay, Mr. Rob? Yeah.
Sorry. Mr. Roberts.
Yeah.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Thank you.
We adjourned at 7:33. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Amber.
Gates Martin hyphenated.
All right.
Agenda next time.
Well, we got Rob and Roberts right beside each other. Good formerly, law firm, do Sheila and Howard.
That's good stuff. Okay, I'm getting there.
Every little,
Getting there.